Hey there, and welcome everybody to this Google Hangout live broadcast via Pet Sittingology. My name is Joshua Cary, and you are attending overall one of my favorite events. I love doing these Google Hangouts, and even more, one of my new favorite people, a longtime friend and fan to our industry. We're joined by Jason Waggoner, who is the VP over at AccuTrack Background Screening Services, and we are going to get the entire inside scoop today. If you've been following me for any length of time over the past year or two, thanks to our pet sitting friend, Miss Sarah Barra, who we all know, love, and respect. She introduced us to Jason, and I've kept in touch with him throughout the months, and many pet sitters who are hiring, considering hiring, looking into hiring, you know as well as I know that screening for a variety of reasons, your staff, background checks, seeing what's what behind the scenes, is really a necessity. And today we're going to get into the what, the why, the how. Really, you're going to want to connect with Jason and his team. He makes it effortless so you can do all of your due diligence and understand why it's important, what's important, what you're looking for on a background check, what you need to know, what's legal, what you can ask, what you should do if you spot something that's a little iffy, what is iffy, what's acceptable, all of that. Before I get too far ahead of the game, let me welcome our special guest today, Mr. Jason Waggoner, like I said, from AccuTrack. How are you today, Jason?
Doing good. Thank you, Josh.
I absolutely love it. What is this little thing you have in the background? It says background screening. Is that a whole, you take that to events?
Yes, that is just when I go to trade shows or go speak, that's just my banner that lets people know what we do and why we do it, and
excellent.
A list of schedule of services there.
Excellent. So like I said, we actually have an entire presentation that we are going to show you. But first, I wanted to just get on camera, banter with you for a little bit, introduce you to our industry quite physically and literally. Everybody watching, this is in fact part of our Pet Sittingology summer events calendar, which you can get the whole listing throughout July and August. We have an entire array of professionals, of experts, of people that are going to help us just take our business to every next level that we want to achieve. You go to petsittingology.com/summer-events. You'll see the entire calendar. But today we have Jason. Now, you are in Dallas, is that right?
Houston, Texas, yeah.
Houston, I'm sorry. So you're in Houston, yes. Texas. You've been with the company for at least 6 years, you said, right? Tell us a little bit about what you do and you know, what the company is.
You bet. Yeah, I've been with the AccuTrack since 2008. I was very lucky. We're from a very small town in Arkansas where we're based out of. So through family, friends, got involved in this industry, and it's been phenomenal. We get to change communities. We get to change lives. But since then, I started out in sales, and since then we've grown. I've been able to take on affiliates in Florida, Maryland, Michigan, Louisiana, and some here in Texas as well, meaning that people that might do drug testing or things like that, we show them how to partner that with background checks for another revenue stream. And so that's really, I've been instrumental in making those relationships and managing that side of it, and just really have a passion for this industry and for helping people maintain a safe lifestyle. We all want to live and work around safe people, and so I'm very blessed to be doing what we do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like I said, Sarah Barra is the one who introduced you to our industry. And over the years, you are, in fact, continually helping pet sitters. Is that right? We constantly get in touch with you to do our good work for us?
Yes, that was one of the first people when I first moved to Houston. Sarah Barra was one of the first people I literally met. I went to a networking group, the very first one I visited, and we got to be really good friends. And it was about a year after that, she said, you know, I have some friends that need help doing this, and everything just took off from there. And whoops.
You're good. Oh, man. We lost Jason. He will return, and he is returning right here. I see him popping back in.
And my bad. There we go.
Oh, good. I like that. In and out. Good to have you back.
Not sure what's doing that, but.
As long as you're here, we're all good. Before we get into the actual presentation, because this is all very valuable stuff, help us understand the big picture. Why is something like a background check important, and really why is it necessary?
The reality of it is most of us are good tax-paying citizens, productive members of society, but we have to be careful for the ones that aren't. There are people that are walking around us right now, small towns, big towns, driving around, people that are looking for their next victim. And for somebody that can gain access to somebody's home, somebody's children, anything like that, those people know where people have their guard dropped. And so that's the areas that they're going to go into, the easier areas to access these. And the reality of it is you don't want to put somebody in somebody's home and be responsible when they come back and say, this person burglarized us, this person assaulted us, whatever the case may be. You don't want to be the one that's on the wrong end of that when somebody comes back and says, who hired this person and why were they working to start with? A lot of times somebody that's that violent, they're going to have a record of criminal history. Now, we can't pick them all out. For somebody that's got a clean record and does these types of things, they're going to fly under the radar until they get caught. But for the most part, somebody that's a career criminal will have a rap sheet that we can pick out and know right away that this person is not safe to be going in people's homes.
So it's not only as the pet sitting business owner doing your due diligence with hiring, this gives you insight into the person's, you said their criminal record and history, but what about things like their driving record? Because I want to make sure if I'm sending them around town that they're not going to be reckless and put lives in danger at my expense.
You bet. There's definitely some variables there. Oftentimes it depends on, is this person driving a company vehicle or is this person driving their own vehicle? In that instance, it's going to be up to the pet sitter and the policies that are in place. Do you hire people with DWIs? And you might want to put that into a format, okay, after 3 years, I'll consider this person. Anything within 3 years, we're not going to be able to hire you at this time. And that's up to the individual pet sitter and the policy of the company as to how they're going to handle criminal history when it's found. But as far as driving records, if they're driving a company vehicle, definitely get the motor vehicle report, because you don't want your insurance to skyrocket when this person goes out there and wrecks one of your cars.
Right, and I know that these background checks are, correct me if I'm wrong, when I ask you to run a background check, are you running it both federally and state specific, or do I just tell you which state I want you to run it through? There you are. Did you catch the question?
I caught the very front of it, and I apologize. I'm hardwired in and everything, so I don't know what the hang-up is.
All right, no problem. I was just asking, if I ask you to run a background check for one of my people, you're going to run it nationally, I assume, and then also, do I tell you what state I'm in and you just run it that way, or does it cover everything and anything for this person?
The state is definitely going to matter, but where we like to start is what's called a national, or a multi-state is what the industry term is. People are getting away from national. Multi-state criminal search, meaning that we're going to scrape records from every county courthouse, the Department of Corrections, anywhere that they have a database that we're allowed to gain that information. Where that comes into play, there's places like Louisiana, a few places there that are still on paper filing systems. They haven't put their data online, so that's why people are getting away from calling that a national check, if you ever hear that term. But yeah, we want to run the full United States, everything we can, because if I lived in Oklahoma and then I moved to New Jersey, I might have a rap sheet that if you only run the state of New Jersey, you would not find that Oklahoma criminal history. It would not show up, and therefore you're putting people at risk if this person's a 3-time violent offender out of a different state.
I love it. And while we're talking, I want everybody who's attending live right now to know that thank you. I do see your comments. Keep them coming. I don't always have a chance to respond, but I will try to respond here. So I see them. Keep them coming, like I said. Rita, we're going to get to that Canada question. I already I saw it earlier, and I asked Jason, so we're going to get to that. But please do keep your comments and questions going. I am reading them as we go along. So with that, Jason, am I am I required to get some sort of specific permission from a potential hire before I pass off some info to you to run the check? How does that process work? And he jumped off, but as we've seen, he's bounced back pretty quickly. So let's hope that he gets back on board with us. I will let you know, Rita, since you asked the question, and while we're waiting for Jason to return here, I asked him earlier, hey, do you guys also do Canada checks? And he said, absolutely. And he showed me a pricing structure, and it's actually a little cheaper than running a United States, funny enough. But I said, if you run someone in the States, why would we also have to find Canada, not realizing that, like he just alluded to, you'd have a rap sheet in different states. So if you come from one, try to get a job in another, and you only run that state, you're not going to find the old. So if you are, in fact, considering running somebody who was in Canada, and that's where their history is, absolutely, he can and will run a background check for someone in Canada, and the cost and the fee is extremely reasonable, and they do it. So make sure to get back in touch with Jason, after this AccuTrack, and he'll be able to run that effectively for you. It's good, Laura, I agree with that. You wrote, when you think about it, we have access to people's cars, their medicine cabinets, their liquor cabinets, the entire home, of course. There is so much more than just the well-being of the animals. And my goodness, is that ever true? That's why it's so important as a business owner to, anytime you're hiring someone, you want the peace of mind. You almost need and are required to get that peace of mind and run the background check. And he's going to go over all the specifics of what is really shown on that. You have the federal criminal, you have the local criminal, you have driving records and infractions, you have any warrants, you have any education. If there was a discrepancy, you get to see their whole living history and where they went to school. So you'll be able to sort of compare notes. And really, let's flip the table for a minute and look at it from a marketing standpoint. Wouldn't your clients want to at least know that everybody's background checked? And Jason's been doing this for pet sitters for at least a year or two that I know of, and I talk to him periodically, and he says, you guys are such a great industry. I love working with you guys, and I hear that more and more often. The more that we divide and conquer, so to speak, and get ourselves in front of these other industries and bring them to our industry, we're passionate, we're loving, we're caring, we're exciting, we do good work. These other people are like, you are not like the other industries that I work with. I've heard this over and over again, least of which Marcus Sheridan, who is, of course, a huge friend and fan to our industry, coming back to the conference for a third year in a row this October. Why does he return? Because he loves who we are. He loves what we do. He loves being in front of us and just watching and seeing all of us absorb and implement what he says and does. So keep the positive vibes going. Try to think of how we can divide and conquer, so to speak, and get in front of different industries who really don't really know of us or don't know that we need their help, these various professionals. Let me see what else you're saying. Good, Rita. So yeah, you'll be able to get in touch, run that Canadian background check. You also said you found a DWI mugshot for someone you were considering hiring, which is interesting. So I wonder, did you find that mugshot on your own accord, or did you get someone to run a check? And I guess, does that become the deal breaker? So you run the mugshot. I wonder if that tells you the complete picture. Is that going to be a long-term deal breaker? Can you find ways that would allow you to hire this person? Can the mugshot be for something that they paid their dues for? Could it be far enough in the past that, okay, let me at least give them an interview and feel them out for myself? Or is something like a mugshot, you know what, one and done, I don't need it, I don't want it, thanks, but no thanks. And thank you guys for bearing with me as we continue to banter and wait for Jason to return. I'll keep reading your comments here. Yeah, Laura wrote, the potential to change the stereotype of the pet sitting industry is huge. We're not low risk. We're not just the pet sitter. And that's something that I'm starting to focus on more and more, which is the, I guess as you call it, the stereotype and the way that the people, the pet community view us. I've read recently, you know, you see these unfortunate articles and headlines in the media when something goes drastically wrong, right? Where you see dog sitter kills dog. It's like, okay, and then they just shine the light on these very specific, very unfortunate, most typically far from professional person or sitter. But why do they do it? Because it is sensational. That's what news is. They're never going to say, dog sitter does an incredibly perfect job, leaves the house in perfect, immaculate condition upon owner's return, right? Nobody's going to care about that kind of a story. That's why it doesn't get said. So that's why we need to keep bringing those kinds of stories to the table, because in the media, the news headlines are only going to focus on pet sitter screwed up big time, they killed dog, they robbed the person blind, they did all these horrific things. And now that, as we're struggling to create a legitimate reputation for ourselves in this industry, those are going to have people. I've seen threads where, and perhaps you have too, pardon me as the phone's ringing, perhaps it's Jason letting me know what's going on. Well, grab it. We need to answer it.
Hi, this is Beth.
Let me just see 1 second if it's Jason.
Okay.
Is it Jason?
He lost his internet connection.
Okay, so it is Jason. I didn't hear what you said. Is it Jason? Hello? Hey there, Jason. Okay. He lost his internet connection. Is it coming back? Yeah, yes, indeed. Do you want me to hang on the phone with you here? Okay, we'll keep an eye on the clock. We'll await your return. We appreciate it. Give me a call back whether or not you're having problems, or I'll see you here. Thank you, Jason. You'll never guess who that was. Now, that was Jason. The building lost internet, he said. He said, we're trying to get it back within 3 minutes. Worst case scenario, we'll just, I see no reason to just get him back on the phone and continue the dialogue that way. Worst case scenario, we have his slides. We'll get him back. We'll make it work. I'm going to make sure that this time is not wasted for you guys, and I appreciate it. I'm looking at your questions here. Lisette asked, do background checks cover juvenile records? Fantastic question. For instance, if someone is only 18 or a bit older, right, because you want to know. Great question. I'll make sure to get that over to him. So to finish up the thought that I was chatting about, the fact that we are desperately trying to, like Laura said, overcome any negative stereotype we have. And unfortunately, we do have an uphill battle, right? We are professionals. We're adults. This is our income. This is our profession. This is our livelihood. This is what we do. We're business owners. But now you have the media who really is not helping. So you have these articles that, oh, dog sitter screws up big time and kills 3 dogs, leaves in a hot car, all that stuff. Again, why are they doing this? Because that makes news, right? That's what people want to see. Sensation, drama, the absurd. So I've seen comments in those headlines where people then say, well, I don't use a pet sitter. I will never use a pet sitter. I leave my pet with a family member or a friend or a neighbor. So that just continues to give us the battle to create our industry in a much more positive light. And that's something that I work day in and day out to do. And as a separate conversation, we can and should work together to see how we can divide and conquer, and how we can continue to improve the reputation, to legitimize ourselves in a sense. Because while we all know pet sitters who've been doing this for 20 and 30 years, since the 80s, since the 90s, it's still relatively new. We are still in our infancy, at least in educating our community that we exist, that we are a viable source, that we're professional, that we are the go-to person, and we have to bring to them all the reasons they should use us by default. I want this industry to get to a point where it's not I'm using a friend or a neighbor or a family, where for the longest time that's all people know. That's what they do. Oh, it's fine. I want to get to a point where pet sitter, pet sitter, pet sitter. Oh, I have a dog walker, and it's just, oh, I'm going on vacation. That's it. No, like a friend and a family wouldn't even exist anymore. So slowly but surely, as we band together and do good professional work, that's the direction we need to take ourselves in, by speaking kindly of each other. And my goodness, a whole other conversation is the way we talk to each other on social media and in these groups and on Facebook. Totally separate conversation, because that's a big conversation. We all do it at times, I imagine, but things like that need to stop, because if you're bad-mouthing or talking negatively about another pet sitter who is doing good work, what is that doing to the pet sitter and to the industry? It's just bad-mouthing everyone. We are one and the same. We have to do the good work, divide and conquer together. Let me see what's going on here. Good question asked here. Unfortunately, I did not get to this point yet, but you ask, how is Jason and AccuTrack involved in the conference this coming October? Such a good question. The answer is very wonderfully so. AccuTrack and Jason is not only one of our premier sponsors, we're so excited to have them on board. They're an amazing company. They're legit. They're incredibly useful. They're beneficial. We need them. They need us. So they're a great corporate sponsor of ours. The first time they're coming on board this year at the sponsor. And furthermore, Jason will be with us in person in Las Vegas, spending the 3 or 4 days with us as a sponsor. He'll have his exhibit there. He'll have himself there. He'll have anything you want to do. You can pick his brain in Vegas, which brings me to the next point. If you like anything that I'm doing here or anything we are doing here, please consider coming to Vegas this October 19th through the 22nd. You know, I'm of course biased, but it's turning out to be an incredible roster, an incredible lineup. PetSittingLive.com is the place where you get your information from. Join us this October in Vegas. It's really looking to be good, and we're just going to have a great old time. Like I say, it's Vegas, right? So how bad could it be? Besides the place we're in, we have incredible speakers, incredible sponsors, incredible attendees. It's just going to be one magnificent time. I hope everybody watching can attend. Best pricing available right now, PetSittingLive.com. We are still waiting for Jason. I do apologize for that. Worst case, I'll get the slides to everybody. We'll get questions over to him if we need to. We could reschedule this conveniently if we need to. I'll make sure it all works out properly. Wow, let me read what Kim wrote here. This is, excuse me, Kim writes, I had a person apply who was the spouse of a convicted murderer. Wow. He murdered his pregnant wife while they were having an affair. Would something like this come up in a background check? I found out via Google. Wow. Well, that's going to be a question for Jason, certainly. We shall see. I imagine if he's a convicted murderer, why it wouldn't come up. But I'll get that question to him. Wow. So what happened, Kim? You just Googled his name and the rest was history. That is scary. So he applied and you're certain it was him? Wow, that's scary as anything, isn't it? And it's like if you just Google somebody, there's going to be plenty there. So, wow. Let me see. All right. If you guys have any other questions while we are waiting for Jason's internet to come back, let me see if there's any other thing before we part ways. If you want to list any questions or comments that I can pass off in the meantime, please do. I don't want to keep this going.
I am back in. Whew. Sorry about that, guys. Wow.
All right. We don't have to focus on it as long as everyone is safe. Everyone's good. You're back.
We are back up and running. I am so sorry. They are.
No problem. We were having a dialogue. So good, Jason. Let me, if you don't mind, let me go through some of the great questions people were asking here,
Awesome.
And then we'll tie it in. So, where did we leave off?
Talking about the motor vehicle reports and.
Yes. Yeah, let me go back and focus on Canada, because when you booted off just a minute ago, I was telling Rita that I had briefed you on the Canada question. So give us a quick overview. If somebody's Canadian, that's their history. They moved recently to the States. Now they want to work for us. You can and will investigate their history there.
Canada it doesn't give as much information, but we do indeed have Canada criminal searches. And the reason you would want to go back to Canada is because if that person moves, they've got criminal history in Canada, now they've moved to New York, you don't want to run a New York search. They haven't been there long enough to even if they were arrested for something, it wouldn't have gone through the system to show up unless you run the exact county that they live in. Therefore, we go back to where they've been living in Canada, run that search, make sure that they're safe where they've been living for a long period of time, and then you have a little bit better understanding than if you were just running the place where they had lived for a short period of time.
So that's fantastic. Now let me ask you this, because perhaps you in your day-to-day in our industry or other industries get this question. If I'm going to hire somebody, why can't I just pull up Google their name and go down that route? Because naturally I'm going to find stuff out about them, right?
Right. There's a lot of gray area there. Nothing's going to stop you from typing their name into Google and just seeing what comes up. Now, the question is, what information can you use? So say you find this person on the internet, they've been involved in they've got pictures of them doing drugs and everything else. Now it's a matter, it goes back to those policies again. Facebook policies, Twitter policies, these are things that you really want to write into your criteria as a company. But in that instance, it's just how you use that information. You don't want that person to say, well, they discriminated against me for what I do on my personal time, even though your personal time conflicts totally with the job that you're applying for. And so that's really where the gray area there is. It doesn't hurt to know if that comes up and you find something like that. You might even want to keep it to yourself and start looking at other applicants and find somebody that's going to be qualified to fill that position that doesn't have those kind of things hanging out there. But that's where it comes back to using a company like us. When you're searching for criminal history for things that are public information, you have a disclosure saying that you have the right to pull this report. That's one of the things we were talking about was the disclosure. The most important part of the background check is this person giving you the okay to do that. They haven't given you the okay to go search Facebook and Google and all these other things. So that's where they might say, well, I never gave permission to do that. why would you go and violate my privacy like that?
Let me ask you an interesting question. Yeah, so obviously somebody needs to specifically grant you permission to run a background check on them, right? You said?
Correct.
What if somebody says, you know what, I'm just not comfortable with that? Is that in and of itself grounds for anything, or?
Sure, you bet. If they don't want to adhere to the background check, we're sorry, but you can't be employed here. That's our policy. We have people going into people's homes, very, very personal, very intimate profession. We have to do background checks for the safety of our community. If you can't comply with that, your application cannot be accepted at this time.
I love hearing this. So when I hire you, or if I ask you to run some background checks on my staff, do I get this sort of dialogue with you? Can you help me discern, like, can I call you, can I email you and say, hey, am I allowed to do X, Y, and Z? Or this came up. Are you going to help me dissect what the background check translates to and how I should be using that information if I want your input?
Definitely. That's one of the things we actually recommend it. If you have any kind of question of what procedure that you're using, is this compliant, we recommend that you give us a call. Let us take a look at what you're doing, the process, and we'll let you know, yes, this is something that we would recommend, or no, this is, you need to, let's go a different route with this. That's one of the things with every state, it can be different. Some states like Texas, for instance, we're a 7-year state. We're not allowed to report anything, well, not anything, sex offenses always take into a different account, but we're supposed to take into account 7 years of their history, and anything beyond that, we're not supposed to report. Some states you can send it all. So that's where it really gets into the different guidelines. Let us know what state you're in. Let us know what your policies and procedures are, and we'll give you a good assessment if that is compliant with state and federal laws.
See, what I like about you and people like you is that I feel so comfortable knowing that you'll be a solid addition to my team. Running this business, which, my butt is on the line, like we're saying here. I'm sending people into these homes and, while they're not there, and their alarm codes. That's a very big responsibility. So if I have a fantastic accountant and an attorney and someone like you, Jason, are just like another great piece of the puzzle to help me sleep at night.
And that's what we say. We want to be that extra staff member. We know that you guys deal with so much stuff in the field that the little details like that, you don't have to stress over. We want to help with those. We want to make sure that everything you're doing is compliant, and then we want you to hit the ground running.
I love it, and I love everybody who's live. Again, thanks for bearing with us and sticking with us. Yes. Absolutely, no problem at all, Jason. I do see all of these questions. Keep the comments and questions coming. I'm going to get to another one here. Lisette asks a really good question that I'm intrigued at the answer. Jason, let's say I have an applicant who's 18, 19, or 20, and I ask you to run the check on this person. Is it only going to go back to their adult 18 and up, or do you check juvenile records?
The only way something would show up under 18 is if this person was tried as an adult. If they committed a heinous act at 16, 17 years old, and the court said we're trying this person as an adult, then you would get the record, probably the prison time that they were sentenced to, and get some details there. But for the most part, once they turn 18, that's where they get to start over again. If they were just, really mischievous through their teenage years, once they turn 18, that's where they get the fresh start, and you won't see anything for the minors.
All right, so that's just basically the nature of the beast. There's nothing you can do, I can do. You just have to take it for what it is and hope for the best as an adult.
Now, the reason you would still say you have a 19-year-old applicant, you still want to run the background check just in the event this person does something crazy. And they say, well, who hired this person? Were they deemed safe at the time of hire? You say, look, we ran this through this company. This is what we searched for. This person was safe at the time of hire. They can never come back onto you with a negligent hiring lawsuit in an instance like that. You did your due diligence. This person, they got out there, and so that's nothing that you could have prevented at that point.
Right. I'm guessing, I have another question here, a very interesting situation from Kim. I'm guessing in your time with the company, you've probably seen and heard all kinds of crazy things on these records. Kim says, I had a person apply who was the spouse of a convicted murderer. He murdered his pregnant wife while they were having an affair. Would something like this come up in a background check? I found out via Google. So to clarify, I think she's asking that the convicted murderer didn't apply.
Right.
The spouse did. Is there going to be any connection there? Great question.
That is a great question. And in the employment realm, there would not be. You would want to be able to take into that person's background only. Anything outside of that, you didn't get a disclosure to take into account the husband's background. So in that instance, and this is where you really have to be careful in your hiring procedures. In that instance, I would tell them if you had real reservations against hiring that person because of that, you don't ever need to disclose that you know that information. You let them know that this position is still open for applications, and you will select the most qualified person. And
Excellent.
that is how you would deal with that.
Right. Again, keep these comments and questions coming. They're great. I want to reference something in your PowerPoint presentation, and I'm guessing that at the end of this Google Hangout, Jason, do I have permission to share this presentation with the industry?
Certainly do, yes.
Okay, good. I think that'll be very helpful. So at the very least, everybody, you're going to get all of this information. One of the things you have on your slide about why running a background check, you say you can verify whether an applicant's resume is truthful. Now, their resume isn't going to talk about their criminal history, etc. So what on the resume will come up on a background check that I can cross-reference?
Well, the resume, you're more looking at their employment history. And a lot of times, we are at the mercy of the applicant to give us the correct information. There are some other steps that can be taken to make sure, just through online research, did this person give me the real number of the company? Did this person give me the real name of the supervisor, or am I talking to their aunt? And so a lot of times the way, and this is something that you can save time and money as an employer, if you want to make these calls, these reference calls, things like that, what you'll want to do is give that supervisor, that person they tell you to call, wrong information. Did this person work up until July? No, they didn't. They actually worked up until October. If you're talking to somebody that does not, that they're just wanting to act like the supervisor, they're not going to know these details. Was this person hired on at $12 an hour? No, their income was actually $16.50. That is a way that you can combat, to quickly check and see, am I even talking to the right person? Is this really who they say they are? Do you know anything about this applicant? And so that would be a way when you're doing your follow-up, your reference calls, things, employment verifications, things of that nature to verify have they actually been employed at these two places for the past 7 years. That's really what you're looking for, is a work history and a good work history, good steady work history and things of that nature when you're talking about the resume.
Yeah, that's amazing. And one of the other points you make that unless we see it, unless we hear it, I've never really taken the path to understand this. If you do not do a proper background check on somebody and wind up hiring them, and then shortly or longly down the road, you need to let them go and clean up that mess. Besides all that, talk to me for a minute about the cost of turnover. Why is it so important to nip this in the bud instead of, I'll hire and deal with it at that point?
You bet. The cost of turnover, there are going to be, there's two types when it comes to the cost of turnover. There's direct cost and indirect cost. Direct would be job ads, maybe using a staffing agency. Are you using any sign-on bonuses, things of that nature? The indirect costs are where it's more difficult to calculate because you're talking your time training. You're talking once that person's gone, are you having to couple double shifts to make up for that person's work? And then when they leave, all that time that you spent training them, You know, if you train them for 2 weeks and they take off, you just wasted 2 weeks training a person that should have been a good asset to the company, and now you've dumped all that time into them. Another thing, they're taking with them all the skills acquired to go start their own company and do exactly what you're doing. So you want to be really careful, you know, about who you give your trade secrets to and things of that nature. If your business is understaffed, it's gonna affect you. If they're leaving due to maybe you have 15 employees, are they leaving? Who are they answering to? Is that person? You know, it's not always the employee. You want to make sure that the management is doing what they say they're going to do also. I think the studies show that the cost of replacing an employee can be 3 times what the salary would have cost. By the time you figure out the job ads, the training, everything that you dumped into this employee, it can be up to 3 times of what an annual salary would have been to train them and then for them to leave like that.
Wow, that makes complete sense. So again, the cost of hiring is a factor that we all need to consider.
That's why that perfect applicant makes a whole world of difference when you can check that they're safe, they've got good work history, they're not going to just come in and then leave in 2 weeks. That's the factors that you're looking for.
It really does. And somebody asked, what's the web address of the company? My apologies for not getting it out earlier. Of course, the name is AccuTrack. That's ACUTRAQ.com. AccuTrack.com. His name is, of course, Jason Waggoner. You can see him and read all about him on the site, etc. The other question I want to get to is, would a currently pending criminal legal matter show up?
Currently pending is something you want to be very careful with, because currently pending means that this person could potentially be exonerated, or the case could be thrown out where they were arrested, but they were never convicted. And we all know that somebody can be arrested for anything. So in the background screening arena, we don't typically look at arrest records. That is something that can get you in trouble, because if you make a decision based on an arrest record, that person was not convicted, and you do not hire them, that is when they go get a lawyer and say they were discriminated against for a criminal history that was there but had no meaning. It was thrown out of court. They were never convicted on it. Somebody lied about them, whether it's a divorce, custody battle. People can say anything to get somebody arrested.
Wow. Kim asks a great question, and this is going to get us into the actual process. I'm so glad you asked them this. She's asking, do you, Jason, give us the consent form to present the hire, or do we need to go to a lawyer and get it that way?
We can certainly provide one. It's a very simple form. The FCRA, which is the Fair Credit Reporting Act, it sounds really weird, but that act actually governs the way background checks are used for employment purposes. The FCRA and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, these are the ones that are now governing. This just changed in the last couple of years. The FCRA always has, but the FTC used to govern this, to where now the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Their guidelines state this must be on a plain piece of paper, clear and conspicuous, consisting solely of the disclosure.
Wow.
I've actually got a meeting coming up next week, because there are a lot of companies right now getting sued because they have this disclosure included in a full application or in the midst of a bunch of other things.
Wow.
They don't want anybody to misread what they're fixing to sign. You are signing that it's okay for me to use your background. It's okay for me to verify everything on your application, and that needs to be by itself. It's a really simple form, and I can email that. Even if somebody's not using us, I'm glad to email that form, because it'll keep you out of trouble.
So let me repeat that. If whether or not we use you to run our staff background checks, you will provide us with the consent form?
Sure will, yes.
Does it get any better? I'm going to take you up on that. I'm going to make sure by the end of today, I'm going to get that document, if you really have it available that quickly, Jason.
We have some people that once they get it, they say, "Really, is this it? This looks really cut and dry." So that's it. That is exactly how they want it laid out. and
Wow.
really saves a lot of confusion. But yes, I'll send that to you so that you can forward that or add it to your resources.
Oh my. Oh yeah. I'm going to look for that before the end of today. As soon as Jason gets that to me, I'm throwing it online and we'll get everybody to get that resource. That'll be incredible. Thank you for that. So what am I, in essence, getting from my applicant to pass off to you? Social, name, birth date, what else? What's involved with that?
For the United States, the name, the date of birth, and social are what we need to run a background check. The social, the only reason we need that is so we can find alias names. So really, when you're talking about criminal history, it's going to be stored by name and date of birth only. And this is something that's very important when you're taking applications. Always make sure that the name on the application matches the exact name and the exact date of birth on their identification. A career criminal will know that if they change their name or if they change their date of birth, they can slip through that background check. And so that's why it's really crucial to watch that. And like I say, the normal people it's not something that's even on their radar. The dangerous ones are the ones that we're watching for. So if you see somebody that switches this information, also somebody named Bob, their real name may be Robert. So you want to make sure that for a Kathy, are we searching Catherine and Kathy, Katie? All these different names matter as to how we're going to find that criminal history. So name, date of birth, and social is how we search that. And with the social, we take a scrape. Anytime somebody's ever turned on a utility, signed up for a credit card, whatever address they put to that social, the address and name are what we are able to get. So if somebody's been married 5 times, we're going to run Sandy Smith, Sandy Johnson, Sandy Taylor. We're going to run every name that she's had underneath that social just to make sure that we're not missing something.
So if I'm hiring somebody, I have a typical application, and on the bottom of the application, I have a checkbox that says, please check this box to consent to a background check. Legal or not legal?
For employment, I would be very careful about how you do that. If you're wanting to do it online for employment, you want to make sure that you have laid out the steps, that this is an electronic signature. And then when it comes time for that form, you don't want it to be at the bottom with a checkbox. You want it to be by itself. When that page pops up online, it needs to be by itself, consisting of nothing but the disclosure, and then you want an actual electronic signature. The only signatures that will comply with the FCRA are actual e-signatures that capture an IP address. That way, if you need to track it, you can track it back to them and say, no, we did not check this. You checked it from this IP address and signed your electronic signature.
So pull the curtain back for us for a minute. When I give you the information and you're up and running, I ask you to run a background check on this person, everybody's on board. Where are you getting the information from?
Would it be okay if we pull up the PDF?
Sure, you got it. You know how to do it.
Yeah.
Jason's going to share his screen with us. So while he's doing this, are you guys joining us live? Are you getting value? Are you appreciating this? Is it opening your mind? Are you getting your questions answered? I love reading these questions and comments in the chat box.
Okay, does everybody have visual of the...
Yes.
Okay. This is talking about how criminal information is obtained. Nowadays, with the internet, we have so many places that we can get this. The main thing is it accurate? The 3 main sources, and there's more than this, but these are the main sources, are third-party sources, meaning that multi-state database that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to be a very good tool. But in the employment realm, those databases are so big that they're not to be trusted. That's why when you find criminal history on a third-party source, you want to verify that at the county level, because the county level is where the judge actually signed off and said, okay, this is expunged, this is a conviction, this is what the final disposition on the case was. That way you can use that information and you can say it was verified. Using a national criminal database, you may get something that says it's a conviction and it was actually thrown out. So you don't want to just go by any third-party sources. We'll dig a little deeper into these. These are multi-state or national criminal databases. These consist of county searches, state-level searches, uh, the administrative office of the courts for each state, the Department of Corrections for each state, anywhere that they have a database that we are allowed to go in there and scrape those records. That's where those huge databases come from. They are a compilation of everything. So what you'll see sometimes is somebody get convicted on something, that conviction get overturned, but then it's never updated on the big national database. You would find that information at the county level. State records.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. This is all part of it. You're good.
Okay. State records, they're kind of in the same ballgame as a multi-state search. They're still a state database. A lot of people don't. There's gray area there, whether you need to verify state criminal records or not. But when it comes to making a negligent hiring decision or discrimination, you want to make sure that person can't say that. When you go for that to use that criminal record in your decision to not hire this person, you don't want any doubts in your mind that record is true and accurate. And so state records, they're a good source, but like Texas, for instance, we don't have a real state database. So it makes it harder than Arkansas, for instance, that has a state database. These consist of felonies, misdemeanors, infractions, traffic violations, arrests, deferred adjudications, cases without dispositions or expunged records. So that's where you would want to go to the county and see, okay, was this truly a deferred adjudication to where I cannot use this in my hiring decision, or was this an actual conviction? County criminal records are the absolute best source for information. Now, we know that it's not feasible to run every county in America. That's why for the pet sitters, we put together a package that starts with the multi-state search and every alias name associated with that person. Now, in the instance that we find criminal history, and I'm sorry, we also couple that with a county of residence search. That county of residence search adds another little piece of due diligence to the picture that allows you, if something ever happens, to say, we did our due diligence. We ran the multi-state, the county of residence, all alias names. We verified their social security number, and AccuTrack will back us up on this, or hopefully the company that you use will stand behind the information that they provided. But the county criminal, that is the most important. If in an ideal world, what we would want is we would want to run 7 years of the county, or every county they've lived and worked for 7 years, and we would want to run every county. Yeah, I'm sorry, I got mixed up there. Every county they've lived and worked for 7 years would be the ideal, but you can get into a $300 background check doing that. So that's why we put together the package for the pet sitters that includes a really good search that if you ever end up in court, they're not going to be able to say you did not provide enough due diligence. It includes that county criminal search, and also if we find criminal history on the multi-state, we're going to go verify it at the county before we return that information.
I love it. So when it comes back and we see the results, does it sort of become our decision with how we want to proceed? Do you sort of give us advice? How does it all play out once we see some iffy results?
If you see criminal history, that is a very good question. There are the way that the federal guidelines say we have to deal with that. I don't know if any of you are familiar with adverse action, but this is the part of the process that gives the applicant a chance to say, wait, that wasn't me. And this is called pre-adverse action. So you find criminal history. Now you want to see how, and the next step would be to print out a pre-adverse action letter that gives them the CRA information. In this instance, it would give them AccuTrack's information so that they can contact us directly and file a dispute. And what that dispute does, it allows us, we get all the information from them, we take it to our provider and say, okay, this person says that this criminal history is wrong, this is his twin brother, their socials are one number off, and they keep getting their identities mixed up. We do the verifications on that to make sure that we gave you the right information. And we get it a lot of times where applicants say that, and then when it comes time to do the dispute side of it, they're gone. We never hear from them again. If somebody has information to dispute that, say they went to prison, they got out, they went to school, became a doctor, have all this money, and want to get that expunged. They go hire a lawyer. Now this record is expunged to where you can't see it as an employer. That would be lost my train of thought there, but that would be an instance to where you would want to make sure that you had the right record, and that person would have all the paperwork, the documentation that they need to submit to us for us to go to the provider and say they were right. This was expunged. Here's the paperwork. Take this off their record and don't show up here. So that's the process there. But you want to give that applicant a reasonable amount of time. That's some more gray area that we're working on. We need a time frame there, but for now, a reasonable amount of time consistently has been 2 to 3 days. 4 days, enough time to give that applicant, if they have to go get that paperwork, that they can do that and get it back to AccuTrack or the CRA that's dealing with them to make that dispute. Say the criminal history is theirs, the next step would be to follow up with an adverse action letter that lets them know that their application is denied and why it was denied. Their report is in there for them to see, everything that they need, our information, the FTC, the CFPB's information, everything that they're going to need to keep you out of trouble. That adverse action letter is there's no gray area there. You have to use it when denying an applicant for employment purposes.
Wow. So can you come back on camera for a minute?
Oh, you bet.
And just for everybody watching, I know that on some screens that print might be small. You're going to have the actual slides to refer back to, so you'll be able to read it in full-blown content there, context, I should say. Somebody asked a question about credit reporting. How does that tie into all this?
Credit reporting is state to state. There right now, I want to say there are 12 to 15 states. I would have to look at it. It changes all the time. There's more states coming on. Maryland, for instance, not allowed to use credit reports in a hiring decision unless it is an accountant, somebody that's dealing with money directly. Other than that, you're not allowed to run it. Other states, you can include it just as part of the process. Employment credit reports will not include a score. They will include trade lines so that you can see the person's history and their patterns. But an employment credit report will not include the credit score. But yeah, let us know what state you're in. We'll let you know if that's something that you could potentially use. But you really want that to be, in nowadays and times, even in the states that it's allowed, make sure that there's a purpose for it. If you're hiring somebody on as a custodian, there's no need for a credit report there. They're not handling anything. If they wreck their credit, it's on their personal stuff. There's nothing they could affect your company with. If this person's dealing with any type of money, taking money from clients, even if it's a pet sitter that's going around collecting, you might want to run a credit report. But just make sure that it's specific to the job when doing that for employment purposes.
Wow, and more than one person asked about credit reporting and credit checks and that sort of a thing. So it's a very interesting topic.
Another thing about credit reports that's required, that's not that nobody has done yet, is credit reports require a site inspection of your place of business. If you manage from a home office, they will not allow us to sell credit reports. They see that as a threat. Friends, family, anybody coming in could potentially access that information. And so for home landlords, they don't allow the sale of credit reports. It has to be a commercial office that we can conduct a site inspection, send an agent to there for the credit bureau that says, yes, they are at the exact address. No, they're not temporary. They're not involved in any fraud. The furnishings match the type of business, and it has to comply with the credit bureau as well.
Yeah, now I want to preface this question with the fact that Jason's background check services are extremely affordable. Get in touch with him at your earliest convenience, and you'll see exactly what I mean. So my question to you, Jason, is what if I just Google free background checks and go with a company that's going to cost me either zero or next to nothing to run?
There are a lot out there. That's the main thing. The company that you're getting your information from Are they doing it to the standards of the FTC, the CFPB, the EEOC, and then, of course, the FCRA? That's the big thing. You don't want to get outdated records. There's a lot of companies that have started databases. They sell them. They sell them like they're up to date, but these things might not have been updated for 2 years. The difference with using established consumer reporting agency like us, that's what, when you hear somebody talk about a CRA, that is a background screening company. We give you a report, we do those investigations. But when you hear, lost my train of thought.
Free background screen?
Yes, and when you hear that, you have to wonder when the records are updated. Like AccuTrack, for instance, our database goes out every day looking for updates. So one in Arizona might update every 2 weeks. One in Oklahoma might update every month. One in Ohio might update every 3 months. So every county courthouse across America sets their updates at a different time. And if you're not scraping for those updates, then you are putting people at a high risk for missing those criminal records.
How long does it take to get a background check back from you once submitted?
A criminal report will normally take 1 to 2 days. Sometimes they can come back instantly or within a couple of hours, depending on the county courthouse. They're the ones, the multi-state search will come back instantly. The verifications of those, the county of residence and any verifications that we do are what take 1 to 2 days. We have to communicate with the counties on those. Each county is different. Some counties work with us better than others. And so we're all at the mercy of the county to get that information back. And we stay after them 2-3 times a day until they get us that information. But 2 days, two days, if it gets 3 days out, we're going to communicate with you and let you know this county is not responding. We're continuing to contact them, and we're going to keep you in the loop on anything that gets further out than 2 to 3 days there.
Before we wrap this up, one other question I want to ask is about specifically traffic violations. Am I going to see things like speeding tickets and points on a license?
You wouldn't see that. Where you would see traffic violations is if somebody had say they were arrested for careless driving, DUI, DWI, anything of that nature, where there was an actual conviction that took place. That's when it would show up on their criminal history. Other than that, you're going to get the points and everything as far as that goes through the driving record, through a motor vehicle report. The motor vehicle reports have a base price and then a state fee. The state fee is different on each state for the motor vehicle reports. So our price of $625, Arkansas, for instance, the state fee is $650. So you're looking at $12. Texas, $11.50. Every state's going to be a little bit different.
Right. And Rita asked a question that I was thinking too. Basically, so today I run a background check on a potential hire. Let's say everything's good to go. They're hired. How often should I recheck? To ask Rita's question specifically, what about running background checks every couple of years for people already working with you? Anyone do that? Is it a good idea? What is the usual standard, Jason, in rechecking?
That is a great idea. We have some companies that do it monthly. You know, in the healthcare industry and things like that, they're going into people's homes, elderly people's homes. If they go to the club and get in a fight, get arrested, they're looking for any updates of this person going out there and doing something like that. Granted, there might be a lag in time before that that conviction and everything comes up, but you want to search for that and see. But we recommend every year, and y'all in the pet sitting profession, probably every year would be good. Every 2 years at the most. Just go ahead, run a quick search, make sure this person hasn't been involved in anything that you're unaware of. Very good idea to do that.
Yeah. So I feel like we've covered everything in your slides. Again, we're going to link to the whole presentation here. We've dealt with everybody's questions. While you were off the air for that little bit of time there, Jason, I was talking about the fact that you are, in fact, not only one of our premier corporate sponsors for the Vegas conference this October, which we are excited and thrilled about, but you are going to be with us in person in October, correct?
Yes, I am looking forward to putting faces to names, and you know, it's been great. The pet sitting industry has been the the easiest industry to work with. You all are so down to earth. It's just been phenomenal. And that's, in our decision to go to Vegas and to really focus on pet sitting, it's a no-brainer for us. You find good people, you want to be around those good people. So.
I like it. One of the things that I like to say is like attracts like, and that's sort of what you're suggesting as well. You're just drawn to the people who really make you smile.
And if people have questions, definitely feel free to shoot me an email if you want to give them my contact information, which is really easy. It's jason@accutrack.com. So JASON @ACUTRAQ as in Queen.com. So jason@accutrack.com. There are some other searches that go into account, federal searches, municipal searches, things that dig a little bit deeper, but we can cover all that at a different time.
Exactly. So everybody, accutrack.com, jason@accutrack.com is the direct email. We'll also link to his direct line. Maybe we'll give you his home address. If you're in the neighborhood, just stop over, knock on his door.
We're in the South. Come on by.
Once we're ready to get up and running with you, I would look at your website. I'd shoot you an email. What am I going to say? Hey, Jason, let me get the ball rolling, and you'll just connect the dots for us and send us on our way. You'll tell us what to do.
We send you a link that literally takes 2 or 3 minutes to sign your company up. No cost to sign up. You're only charged when you use it, and we're here for full support.
Well, I absolutely love it. I am extremely thrilled and excited that we did this, to have you open our mind between the legalities of this. And one point I want to reiterate, like I said earlier, is working with someone like Jason is not only so important for your peace of mind and your security and the very validity of your business, keeping everybody on the up and up, assuring your clients and potential clients that everybody is as expected. When you work with Jason, he is part of your team, so make sure to use him, ask him questions, pick his brain, and they will be there for you until the end of time. So with that, I want to thank you, Jason, for coming along with us. We will obviously keep the conversation going. We're so excited to have you guys as a sponsor, accutrack.com, for the Vegas conference. You can still register for the event, October 19th through the 22nd. Best pricing available right now. PetSittingLive.com. Jason will be there. He'll be bantering with us in person. Get in touch with him via accutrack.com. We are going to be holding these events weekly through the summer. Visit PetSittingology.com. You can see the whole entire calendar of events. Let's keep the dialogue going. Enjoy the rest of the day, everybody. Thanks again for joining us, Jason. We'll talk soon.
Have a great day.
See you, my friend.